Hello guys, it's Jonathan here to another Bakugan review, this time on a BakuTech. I always do reviews on BakuTech, I don't know why I started like that, but anyway. This is G-Ganorada, so G-Ganorada is one of the most interesting BakuTech, and this is actually one of the reasons to why I wanted to do these solo reviews. I've been wanting to talk about this guy for a while because I feel like I didn't really talk about it well enough in my original videos in like the Super 5 set or Champion deck, so yeah, anyway, let's just go and get into this thing. So here it is. Here's what it looks like. Take note of these cross pieces and how they're positioned. They're like a very, centered, effectively. There's also the gravity ring type of thing as well, which I'll get more into, but anyway. Just take note of these cross pieces, essentially, but yeah. Opening this guy up, opens up like this. Has 6 tenjis, you could probably see that there. Manual parts, these parts you can kind of flip out a little bit, and then the horns come up. And yeah, here he is, so pretty nice Bakugan overall in terms of appearance. So yeah, you also, again, the gravity ring thing, this thing kind of just moves up and down when it's open, so alright, let's go ahead and talk about this thing. Okay, so personal score out of the way. I've never been the biggest fan of this thing. I've always thought it was kind of cool. I like the fact that this part moves, but it's not the craziest Bakugan. I'm gonna give this thing, man, this card sucks. This thing is very off-center looking, but anyway. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 personally, just because I like the color scheme, and it's still a decent looking Bakugan, but it's just nothing crazy. Competitive stuff. This is the stuff I wanted to talk about, so okay. This thing is a good, maybe not good, it's a solid attacker on its own. You know, it has, I think, a little bit extra weight from this gravity ring, and also of course, these two cross pieces being metal, you know. It's a solid enough attacker. It's also Pyrus, pretty good attribute. It's pretty oversaturated, I guess, but I think this thing is still a very worthy Pyrus Bakugan to use. So, why do I just call it a solid attacker, but still say it's worth using in such a, saturated attribute? Well, so basically, this gravity ring here, the whole thing is, it's something about, it gives it more, magnet space, all you know is that it makes it easier to land on the card effectively. Especially if you're doing, side shots, you're not rolling normally, and also with side shots, because of how these cross pieces are placed, it's very balanced and works well with that, and with the gravity ring, it also means that you can stand very easily. So you kind of just get utility. It's a solid enough attacker, but with good utility that really brings this thing up. And that's kind of the cool part. Now, the reason I'm not going as in-depth with this is, I'm just going to say right now, I'm not good with this thing. I'm really not good with this thing at all. So I can't go too in-depth with it. But that's kind of what it does, and it's still, yeah, it ends up being really good. And there's really one thing that I want to clear up. This is kind of the main part. The main reason why I want to make this video is just kind of the misconception. A lot of people seem to think that this thing is a defensive Bakugan, or kind of a attack and defense Bakugan. It really just isn't at all. Okay, kind of, but let me explain. So a lot of people tend to think this gravity ring is a defensive wall that just does a lot. You can't hit this thing off the card as easily because, this thing is here. It just is good at deflecting attacks. And I will say, it's actually pretty solid at that. It stays on the card really well. So if I say it, can deflect attacks and stays on the card well, why is this not a good defensive Bakugan? Okay, so if you're doing things competitively with defense, you kind of really need occupancy. Because with Bakugan like Nagadaja, Yorange 4 Ozpress, even an older Bakugan like Acro Gezzard, these things are very low to the ground. They occupy a lot of the card as well, but they're low to the ground, which makes them harder to deal with. And also they occupy the card. So this thing, like, you don't have a lot of space to occupy. It's also, like, kind of top heavy, not, like, too bad. Like, this thing does help to deflect attacks well enough, but, like, if it goes off the card, like, enough, it's probably going to fall over. Especially, like, off the side or something, it's done. So you just don't really get enough occupancy with this thing. Like, this thing just does not take up enough of the card. Like, I'll just put it towards the edge, and it's like, yeah, this thing's not taking up a lot of space. This is not a defensive Bakugan. It does, again, it kind of has that utility where, yes, it is something that will stay on the card once it, stands. That is some helpful utility. I'm not going to deny it that, and that it does have that defensive capability. But why would you ever want to use this thing as a genuine defensive Bakugan? I guess maybe you want to, like, double stand something. This thing's kind of not the biggest, but, like, I feel like you would want to use this thing, like, second in that case, potentially, and it, like, anytime you try to make a defensive argument for this thing, it doesn't really work. It just has that utility to work and stay on the card well. Obviously, yes, being, well, defense, but again, in a competitive setting, occupancy is more important than just that pure defense, because again, a lot of occupancy stuff that's, well, good for occupancy is also just good for defense. You get both. This, you only get one. That said, there is something like, Jaibafuda, which is great defensively, and it's bigger than this thing, but it's still not like a huge occupancy Bakugan either. But that thing is just such a tank that it doesn't even matter, because that thing is going nowhere, so you kind of get by with that one. This thing, that's kind of the main thing I want to talk about, is that this thing is not meant to be a defensive Bakugan. It is an attacker that is a solid attacker, but has really, really good utility that makes it, kind of with its rolling and stuff, that just makes it stand out and makes it actually like a really, really good Bakugan to use in like a Pyrus deck or something. Plus, again, you have defensive utility, but it's not a defensive Bakugan, if that makes any sense at all. Hopefully this made sense. Again, I'm really not the best person with G-Ganorada. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not, but I still want to explain what it does and also clear up this misconception that a lot of people have, and that was kind of a big reason why I wanted to do this video for so long, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, like, genuinely, this is one of the Bakugan that led me to kind of, because originally I was thinking about just redoing a review of the Champion deck, but I'm like, well, I could just review this thing on its own, and there's also a couple other things I want to review on their own, so I decided to make this into a whole series like a year ago, and we're finally just getting to G-Ganorada, so yeah, there you go. That is my whole thing about G-Ganorada and wanting to talk about it. So yeah, anyway, overall competitive score, I'm going to give this thing an 8 out of 10, because again, you just have a lot of extra stuff with this Bakugan. Again, solid attacker, just has a ton of extra utility with it. That is very, very nice. And I guess maybe utility isn't the best word, but I feel like it's just kind of a common word that works well in this situation, because again, the magnet stuff, some defense in not a actual defensive Bakugan sense, but just, being able to stand, and then also, like I said, not the magnet placement, the cross piece, there we go, the cross piece placement. So 8 out of 10, it is really good. Again, if you're making a Pyrus deck, this thing is worthwhile for sure. So yeah, it's definitely worth considering at the very least. I know I believe might be the green one, I'm not entirely sure. There is a 720G variant of this thing. That is one to look out for if you want to make like a best deck or something. I know there's G-Ganorada Kai, but I'm not going to really get into that. I might talk about the Kai Bakugan in a separate video, we'll see, but anyway. That's all for now. That is everything with this thing. Again, 8 out of 10 competitively, really good, worthwhile. Maybe not as worthwhile on like like if you were doing like multiple attributes or something, which you can debate about how good that is, but still, like, maybe not as worthwhile in that regard, but it's still overall like really good for Pyrus. So yeah, I probably don't need to keep saying anything else. So anyway, that's all for this video. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye bye.